Dr. Mark Hicks, welcome to Seeking the Beyond. Would you please introduce yourself for us?
Yes, I am an author. I am a ghostwriter. I come from a counseling background with a master's degree in mental health counseling. I also come from a spirituality and theological background, working in ministry and mission work. I have a master's degree in divinity and a doctorate in ministry. And for the most part, those two tracks of my career have remained separate, but sometimes they cross paths. For instance, I led a recovery group at one time. It was a faith-based addiction recovery program, but there's a lot of counseling involved in that. I also have led at one time a free counseling clinic that was sponsored by the church, and so that theological and psychological background has kind of come together on occasions. And then I have my book coming out. That's my primary focus at this point. Pre-orders are available now for my book, Learning Love, that comes out from Morgan James Publishing in June of 25, and it will be available in bookstores and wherever books are sold and online. And I'm very excited about that because that is really a culmination of all the things I've done in my life. Because everything that I have done from a counseling standpoint, from a theological standpoint, and also a lot of my own personal experience has been about learning how to have relationships. And sometimes in my own personal experience, that didn't go well, but I learned along the way, and I've learned some important things. And so all that came together for me to write what I believe is on the most important topic we have, and that is love and how to
Mm,
build healthy relationships in every area of life. In my book, I teach how to have relationships, not only in a family or a marriage situation, but also friendships that are so important in our life and relationships with coworkers and loving what we do for a living. These are all various forms of love. It manifests differently, of course, but the ideas, the components that it takes to build those are the same from every aspect of life. And so I teach in my book the five components of love. And as a speaker, as a workshop leader, as a coach, I depend on those five components of love to get that message out of how to build the relationships that we want and need and deserve.
and that's absolutely amazing. I love the intersection of theology and psychology. And you've worked with people struggling with addiction, people with mental health issues. That's definitely me. So I'm really keen to learn from you today
Yeah.
and, hopefully dive into some interesting topics. So, my first question, how did your spiritual journey begin, and did you experience a calling at any point?
Yeah, my spiritual journey began when I was very young. I came from a family that was a religious family, a spiritual family, and so that had a big influence on me. Of course, I
Mm,
was learning Bible stories from the time I was an infant. Some of my earliest memories is my grandmother reading to me from a children's Bible,
mhm.
reading Bible stories, and I would always ask her to read about Samson. I always liked the
Samson,
big
yeah.
strong the big strong guy was my favorite.
Yep.
To the point that she said, "Okay, I'll read you the story of Samson, but we have to pick another story first, and then we'll read Samson." And so, I came from that spiritual, religious kind of background, and it has served me well. I've had some bumps
Mm.
along the way. I've had
Oh,
some
of course,
struggles. I've had some crises of faith along the way. It's not been a
definitely.
perfect journey at all. I've had some difficult questions to ask, and still do. And I think
Mm,
I think from my perspective, those struggles, those doubts, those difficulties that we have in the area of faith and religion and spirituality are not shortcomings. They are not weaknesses. They actually build our faith over time. And so I'm not sure exactly who taught me this, but I think from a number of messages that I received, I learned pretty early it's okay to not have the answers,
yes.
to not understand everything, to know you have doubts and struggles and fears when it comes to religion, and to have other influences that that bring about understanding as well. And that's why from an early time I really understood that psychology and things like counseling and sociology, these were areas that could also teach us about our human journey, which teaches
Mm,
about our journey of faith. So while some people see counseling and psychology very different than religion and spirituality, I see them as blended together, learning who we are and how to live that out as a spiritual person, a person of human spirit that is a creation of God. I think both of those areas have been impactful on me in my spiritual journey.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And, I have certainly struggled with my own doubts, with my own fears. I had a very substantial crisis of faith when I was from the age of about 18 to about 21. I was raised in the Catholic system. Um, but I think absolutely the psychology I find is so blended, as you said, into the spirituality, how to live when we don't have all the answers, but we still trust that there is a benevolent creator and he knows what he's doing. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and
so
we're learning along the way.
absolutely, absolutely, learning along the way. Can you think of the first time your faith was seriously challenged by something?
Wow. I think the first time there's been some more significant times after this, but
Mm.
probably the first time as a teenager, uh,
Mhm.
I knew that I had a calling into ministry. You asked that earlier, and I didn't exactly answer it, but yes, at about 13 years old, I really felt a strong calling that I would be in ministry. I've kind of gone back and forth. That's pastoral ministry, mission work, counseling ministry, a lot of different things. It's taken different forms, but I've always been drawn to and called to that area of ministry.
Mhm.
And that came at about 13 years old. But
Yeah.
as a teenager, that was a hard road to walk. I mean,
Mm.
it doesn't necessarily make you popular to be the local teenage minister in town.
Yeah.
And so it was difficult at times to all teenagers feel like they don't fit in. But
Mhm.
for me, the way that manifested was, well, my overt faith and my desire to be a minister when I grew up, sort of was the reason that I was felt like I was outside. Other people experience the same thing. Every teenager feels like they're outside somehow, probably. But that was a struggle for me because it kind of showed me that, just because you're doing good things, just because you're doing the right thing doesn't mean it'll go well. And at
Yeah.
a young age, I had to kind of face that crisis that we all sort of learn eventually, but we begin on a naive place thinking, well, if I do the right thing, God will bless me
Yeah.
and it all go great.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was difficult and it didn't all go great. And so that was my first sort of crisis. A small one in comparison to some of the ones later, maybe, but that was my first one, an important lesson that, it can be hard. Life's going to be hard with you do the right, even if you do the right thing.
And absolutely, you've chosen to respond in a particular way. You think you're doing the right thing, and it doesn't pan out, and that can be
Mhm.
very difficult to accept.
Yeah. Yeah, life is going to be hard for all of us. There's going to be difficulties. Even if you're a good person, do the right thing, you're a spiritual person, you're following the calling of God. No one gets through life without scars.
Hmm.
Everyone experiences struggle and hardships. It's just part of a fallen world.
Hmm. Can you think of an event or episode in your life where faith helped carry you through?
Yeah, a number of them again, but I think the most significant crisis I've had in my life, and eventually it was faith that carried me through, was early in my life. While I write about love and relationships, I didn't always know what I know now,
Hmm.
and while I came from a healthy family, came from a happy family, and I'm blessed to be able to say that there's always, downsides to everything. Nothing's perfect in life. And the unfortunate aspect of being raised with a healthy, happy, thriving family with parents that loved me and loved each other was I was pretty naive. I thought
Hmm.
love was easy. I thought it just
Yeah.
happened. I didn't
Yeah.
think that there was, I didn't understand. I knew logically that there were cruel people in the world. I knew there were manipulative people in the world and toxic relationships and abusive relationships, but I didn't understand that on an emotional level. I didn't think it would happen to me. And so, with that naive state, I ended up in my early adult years in a toxic first marriage. It was a terrible situation. It ended
Mm.
in divorce eventually, but it took a long time because from that religious background, I
Yeah.
thought divorce is not something that I ever saw as an option. I believed in the commitment of marriage, and also my there was times while faith got me through it, my a misuse of faith at the
Mm.
time was it made me very cocky. I thought
Yeah.
I'll be spiritual enough, faithful enough, committed enough. I'll pray enough. I'll be strong enough. I'll be smart enough, wise enough, all these things enough
Yeah.
that I will fix this marriage and we will make it because I will do whatever it takes. And it took me a long time to get over my ego, to admit that
Mm.
a lot of that was just the fear of being embarrassed,
Hmm.
and the fear of consequences within the church and what it might do to my family and things to get divorced. But you know, when you live in a toxic state for a long time, it wears on you. And eventually, I came to a place that I knew that I either had to be divorced or I needed to die. I could not live in this world anymore
Mm.
that
Mm.
way. And that's where faith really comes in, that I knew I was not called to live in that state of misery, that I had made a mistake, but God doesn't condemn us for our mistakes. There is redemption, there is forgiveness, there is a second chance, there's second chances in life. And so I finally got past some of my stubbornness, ego, fear,
Mm.
uh, number of things, and decided that I had to end this, that I was not meant, that God did not create me to be in this toxic relationship the rest of my
Mm.
life and to pay for this mistake forever because I was a
Hmm.
naive kid that didn't know what I was doing. And
Yeah.
so I finally came to a place that I understood from a point of faith that God is not going to condemn me, because the people might condemn me.
Yeah.
Some forms of religion would condemn me, but that God was not going to condemn me because I made a mistake as a naive kid, and that
Yeah.
I could start fresh, I could start over, and I could build a new life. And that's exactly what happened. As
Yeah.
I began to understand that and embrace that, I didn't know what that new life would look like. But it's turned out really well. I swore after I got divorced I would never get married again, and then I met Heather and changed my mind, and we're very happy together. And
Yeah.
I don't want to just blow sunshine. It's not perfect, of course. We're human, but and we have to work at our relationship like everyone does, but we
Yeah.
do, and we've built a wonderful life together and very much in love. And I often say I've had a bad marriage and a good marriage, and good is better. We need to work for good. We need to work for good, and there
Yeah.
are ways to do that. And that's what I want to do now from that personal
Yes.
experience, from my counseling background, from my theological background, and from the tough questions I had to ask when that marriage ended of, can we even have love? Is it just a
Yeah.
fantasy? Is it possible to really have it in this world? I have learned the answer is yes, we can, but it's a learned skill set. It doesn't just happen. We have to learn it, and that's what I want to help people do.
Absolutely. And that sounds like, your knowledge and experience here has been hard won, and you've spent a lot of time, living this, and studying it, practicing it. Uh, what are your insights about love? And we've got the five concepts in your book,
Hmm.
that you've taken inspiration from the five wisdom books in the Old Testament. But give us the short version. What would you hope our listeners could learn from this?
Yeah, I can very briefly give you those five components.
Mm.
And the first one is the one that surprises people. It is grief. We have to learn to grieve. We have to get past the hurts that are inevitably going to happen in our life. And if we don't do that, if we don't know how to grieve, we will start to put up emotional barriers and put up defenses and push people out of our life, thinking we're protecting ourselves. But what we're really
Mm.
doing is building walls of loneliness, building
Yeah.
our own prison, to separate ourselves from the people who want to love us. And so we have to learn to grieve and heal those hurts of life. And some of it can be desperately painful. Some things are so painful in life, it's like it leaves a hole in our heart.
Yeah.
But what I want people to know is that you can live a really good life with a hole in your heart. We might not be able to fix the past. In fact, we can't fix the past. We can't fully heal from every hurt. Some things are going to leave emotional scars forever. It
Mm.
may leave
Mm.
a hole in our heart, but you can heal through grief to have a good life anyway, a wonderful life, even with a hole in your heart. And when we understand that, it leads us to the second component of love, which is emotion. This is the one everyone knows about, that we want to have an emotional connection. We want to live together in a way that we
Mm,
have that sense of emotional draw to one another, and we have those feelings of love that we all enjoy so much. And we need
mm.
to learn to express those. Some
Yep.
people express them very easily, some people don't. Personality types being what they are, that's fine. We're not trying to change your personality, but you can practice. It's like any other skill. You can practice showing emotion. The point is, people that you love need to know you love them. They need to understand that, and it needs to
Yeah.
be expressed to them. So even if you're less inclined to show your emotions, practice,
Practice,
learn to say I love
definitely.
you. If you can't say I love you because maybe that word was used against you in a dysfunctional, abusive family growing up, then say things like I appreciate you. Say
Mhm.
things like thank you sincerely when somebody does something
Mm.
nice. Find small ways to show appreciation, and that helps build that emotional connection. The third balances that with practicality. Emotion brings us together, practicality keeps us together.
Mhm.
And this is learning to live together well. You may have heard people say things like, I love them, but I can't live with them. These are the people that have a strong emotional connection, but have failed in the component of practicality. We have to make good decisions and live together well, whether it's financial decisions as a couple, parenting decisions, the ways we communicate with one another, which is another learned skill set, uh, taking care of our mental health. If we have depression, anxiety, it wears on us and it wears on our relationships. But those are treatable conditions. And a practical reality is we got to keep ourselves healthy in order to have those connections with one another. And one very difficult practical element is in order to have healthy relationships, sometimes you have to end the unhealthy ones.
Yeah.
If you have an abusive, toxic relationship in your life, it will drain you and keep you from having the healthy relationships. We have to make room for healthy relationships. It's sad. That leads us back to the grief, but some relationships do have to end. That's a sad
Mhm.
but practical reality of
Mhm.
love.
Mhm.
The fourth component is acceptance, and this is an acceptance of ourselves primarily. We have to love ourselves. I give a lot of credit to Brene Brown. She wrote brilliantly about this in her research. Other people have as well. We have to love ourselves first before we can love anyone else, and that's our full capacity. If you're familiar with the words of Jesus, people will know that Jesus said that the first commandment is to love God with all that you are. The second is to love your neighbor as yourself, to love others as yourself. Now, that's an odd thing for Jesus to say if we had the capacity to love others more. Why would he lowball it? Why would
Yep.
he say, I know you can love others more than yourself, but don't bother. Just love them at that level. No, he already knew what now psychological research is showing, that loving ourselves is the full capacity of our love because love is
Mhm.
organic. It has to be grown within us. It's not a commodity like money that you can get a loan or a second job to get more money. We have to grow love within us. And so love yourself first. Show that love, compassion, that self-care all to yourself in order to show it to others. And then finally, the fifth component is passion. And this is a passion for life. This is about having fun, enjoying your life. Now, we know there's serious elements of life, and that's why practicality is the third component. We know life has its tragic elements, and that's why grief is the first component. But let's
Mhm.
not forget to enjoy life. Have
Yep.
passion, have fun, enjoy your job as much as you can, enjoy your kids as much as you can, enjoy your spouse, your friends, whatever you're doing, enjoy it as much as you can, and look for things to laugh about, to enjoy, to that look for things to have ways to have fun. And if you can do those five things, you grieve to heal the hurts of life. You are willing to connect emotionally with those you love. You live life in a practical way, making good decisions in how you live together. You love yourself first in order to love other people. And you live life with passion, having fun along the way, living and laughing together. You can build healthy relationships in every area, both at home and at work. And in my book, of course, I go into the depths of how do you do that? Those are the five components. And I love sharing in my book how to go about actually living those out.
Oh, it's fantastic. I'm definitely going to buy a copy. I need to know
Thank
all of
you.
this. And what I especially love is, you've drawn inspiration from the wisdom literature in the Old
Yes,
Testament. Um,
yes.
could you just tell us a little bit about the process of finding this inspiration and writing this book? Um, what was it like to sort of put this knowledge together into something you can share with others?
Yeah, the as you said, the inspiration as we've talked about was the five books of the wisdom literature. The book itself is written more from a psychological point of view, but
Mm,
as I looked at the scriptures over the years, I've studied the scriptures a great deal, and as I looked particularly at those, that intrigued me to say that this was the wisdom literature. I
mm,
thought, well, if we can understand this, then we'll have wisdom, and that
yep.
seems like a good thing. And so I studied that a lot. And as I did, themes began to emerge. And as I began to see those themes, it looked like to me a pattern. And eventually, I began to understand that this was not just a path to wisdom, that actually the greatest wisdom is love
Hmm.
because God is love. And so these books, these directions that we have and these inspirations that we have within the wisdom literature is teaching us the greatest wisdom, which is love, which God is that love, and we are created in the image of that love. So all
Mm,
that inspired me to this. But actually, as I actually wrote, I wanted to not just teach a Bible lesson, but I wanted to give real life, practical, down to earth elements of how we do it. And so I wrote the book
hmm.
from a psychological standpoint. I acknowledge in the book that the inspiration came from Scripture, but the bulk of the book is about how to practically live this out in a tangible, real life way.
Amazing. Is there a person who guided and or influenced your spiritual journey?
There were a lot of people.
Yep.
I had many. I'm not sure I could identify just one. I've mentioned that my
Hmm.
parents were
Yep.
wonderful parents. I also had all four of my grandparents were alive until I was an adult. And I know not everyone has that. A lot of people didn't have a relationship with their grandparents. They had deceased before they were born or when they were very young. But having that generational wisdom was important to me.
Hmm.
And sort of growing up, I was very close to all my grandparents, and so that had a big influence as well because when you live a while, you learn a few things, and
Yeah, you do.
uh, having that generational wisdom in my life from a young age and being very close to my grandparents along with my parents was really, I think, a really big influence on me and helped me develop in the way I did from a spiritual standpoint.
Yeah, amazing. And what you're saying is true for many people. They didn't get to have all four grandparents, but I'm sure I really do believe that, life teaches us lessons, and it's so important to listen to people who have, that experience and wisdom that you just pick up along the way. Mark, what is your favorite or most significant passage from the Bible?
Oh, that's another good one. I think the one that we were just talking about, when Jesus says, love your neighbor as
Mm,
yourself. I
yep,
think that is so key that if we are going to fix the problems of the world within our families, in our workplaces, and even in dare I say it, in politics, in
yep,
global conflicts, in every area of life, I truly believe love is the answer. What we have to do then is explore all the questions and learn
hmm,
how do we apply the lessons of love, the components of love in these specific ways. And so I think that particular scripture where Jesus says the first thing we do is love God with all that we are, because we are a creation of love. We are in the image of love is how we're created. It's a fallen world, so we don't look like it now,
yeah,
but we still have that within us. The core of us
hmm,
is still there.
yep,
That spiritual component is still there. And then, as a beloved of God, we express that love to others, but we do it from the standpoint of we love others as we love ourselves. Love your
yeah,
neighbor as you love yourself. I think it's amazing that Jesus said that. And then in our modern day, Brene Brown and other writers are doing psychological research and saying, hey, we actually don't have the capacity to love any more than we love ourselves. And that is psychological fact. but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like, oh, I can love my kids more than myself. I can love my spouse more than myself. And
Mm.
and that's actually not true. We have to build ourselves up. We have to love ourselves. And Jesus knew that. He was the great psychologist. And he said it from the beginning. He said, love your neighbor as yourself, pushing us to love ourselves as God loves us in order to love other people. I think if you understand that much about Scripture, everything else falls in place.
That's really amazing. And, if I might speak a little bit, I struggle with self-love. I fell into addiction when I was a young
Mhm.
man. I've struggled with missed opportunities and wasted potential, poor choices, all those sorts of things. I'd love to ask you, you know, with someone who has made mistakes, who
Mhm.
has, done unwise things, how do you rebuild self-love?
Yeah, I think it is understanding our own inherent value that's not dependent on what we've done or what's
Hmm.
been done to us.
Hmm.
And the way I think about this, the way I illustrate it, imagine a diamond the size of a baseball, and it's perfectly cut, perfectly clear, baseball-sized diamond. That would be priceless. It would be impossible to put a price on that. Now let's imagine we go out into a rural area, out into the farmland, and we roll this diamond around in the muck and the mire and the cow manure, and we bring it back in. How much is it worth now? It's still priceless as long as you know what it is. If you just look at the outside, you look at the exterior and all the nastiness, then you think it's worthless. But if you understand what's actually there, you don't care if it smells bad. You don't care if it looks bad. You don't care how nasty it is. You want it because you understand underneath there all that stuff,
Yep.
there is the priceless
Priceless
diamond.
diamond. Yep.
That that's life. That's our
That's
creation.
amazing.
We are created in the image of God. We are that priceless, exquisite love that is God, and we are priceless. But we've been rolled around a bit in life. It's a fallen world, and we've made a
Mm.
lot of mistakes, and people
Yeah.
have done terrible things to us. And sometimes life just happens, and we don't even know why that such bad things happen. And in the midst of that, all of us get rolled around in the nastiness of life, and we look awful and we look at ourselves at that exterior, what we've done, what's been done to us, the
Mm.
mistakes we made, the junk that's happened, and we look at ourselves and we think we're worthless. And then we look at our neighbor, we look at our family, we look at our friends, and we think they're as worthless as me because they look
Hmm.
just as bad, if maybe sometimes worse. Maybe sometimes people look a little better. But whatever they we're all messed up. We're
Yeah.
all messed up. And so we think bad of ourselves, we think bad of other people. That is because we're looking at the exterior of what has happened to us in this fallen world. That's not
Mm.
who we are. Who we are is a creation of God in the image of God. And what redemption is about, what grace is about, is cleaning
Mm.
off that stuff
Yeah.
so that we can see the diamond. What psychology is about and counseling is about is cleaning off that stuff so we can see the diamond. What philosophy is about is cleaning off all that stuff and
Yeah.
really understanding the core of who we are. All these various schools of thought and academic pursuits are all about getting past the stuff of life and seeing
Mm.
our true inherent value. And I'll even argue, let's say a person doesn't believe in God. They don't believe in that creation that we're talking about. All right. So you believe that we came about through billions and billions and billions of years of random events that eventually led to us not only existing, but being a person with a capacity for love and
Yeah.
laughter and connection and higher levels of thought. Well, that's an amazing origin story.
It
If
is.
even
Just
if you don't
what are
believe
the
in
odds?
God, we are still an exquisite being, even if you reject all the elements of faith and you go strictly with an evolutionary origin story. That's amazing. I
Mm.
will still argue from either road that you take to get there, we are still that exquisite diamond that's in a very difficult situation in this world. And so yes, We've all made these mistakes. We've all gone astray. We've all done really dumb things, and we've had horrible things happen to us. But
Yeah.
that is the muck and the mire and the cow manure. And if you just look at that, you're worthless. But don't just look at that. Look at what's
Yes.
underneath. The reality of your inherent exquisite value, and you start catching a glimpse of that. You start just dusting off some of that muck and mire, and you catch a little glimpse of that diamond underneath the exquisite creation that you are, and you start to maybe see a little bit of that in other people as well. It changes everything in life, and it makes it very easy then to say, I'm not perfect, but I have perfect value,
Yeah.
even in my imperfection, because when I understand my own worth, I can work on a lot of those other things.
Absolutely.
I can fix those. I can work
And
on those.
and I think that's such an important lesson to recognize just the inherent value of everyone, regardless of
Yes,
faith or anything else. I think you're right.
absolutely.
Uh, people have value, and we should work on cleaning the muck.
Yeah. If we clean it up, we catch glimpses of that diamond, and then it just motivates us to clean more. And
Exactly.
the more we do it, the more we learn our inherent value, and love becomes very easy at that point. Loving God and loving ourselves in order to love our neighbor becomes just a natural flow of who we all actually are. We just kind of lost touch with it because of the stuff
Mm,
in our life.
mm. And finally, you've already shared a number of these, but what spiritual insights have you gained from your journey that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones along the way is learning to forgive ourselves. That's part of that
Hmm.
self-love that we've talked about. But
Oh,
it's
definitely.
so easy, and like I said, didn't always know what I know now, and didn't always practice it. And when I was young, it was so easy for me to beat myself up
Yeah.
and be so hard on myself and try to be so perfectionistic at everything and always failing because I couldn't be perfect and being so hard on myself for it and learning that I don't have to be perfect,
Hmm.
um, and that I'm not expected to be perfect. I'm just expected to learn along the way. And
Yeah.
if we keep learning, and that's why the name of my book is Learning Love, because learning love is it's a learned skill set. But the critical component of that is learning. As we continue to learn, we grow. We don't have to be perfect at it. We're never going to fully arrive at love. People sometimes say, "Well, your life must be pretty easy since you know this." Well, my life is good since I know this, but I still have to work at it.
Yep.
No one arrives in my marriage, in my life, in my family, in my friendships. I'm still working at it every day. But because I know the five components, if something's not quite working, it helps me conceptualize it. What's working, what's not. I don't have to beat myself up and say, well, I'm failing in my relationships. I can say, what area, what component am I falling down in? What's the
Hmm.
one that's not working?
Yeah.
It may be that I've been too hard on myself lately. I'm not loving myself enough, so I'm not loving others the right way. Or maybe it's something practical. Maybe it's a practical element that we just need to tweak some things of how we're doing things within our household. But it gives us a conceptualization to say, I don't have to be perfect, but now I can look and see what areas are not, and I can work on them.
Absolutely. And where can we all get our copies of Knowing Love
Learning Love is going to be
or Learning Love?
available everywhere. It'll be available wherever books are sold in June of 2025. The best thing you can do is go to my website, markahicks.com. Make sure you get my middle initial in there. My last name is Hicks, Hicks, markahicks.com. You can get all the information. You can get links to pre-order the book. Pre-orders are available until June 10th of 2025, and after that, it will be available wherever books are sold. You can also get my free ebook on my website, and that is The Five Components of Love. It's a brief overview, just as I've given today, of these five components that I go very deep in my book. Is a brief overview in my ebook. You can have that for free. I also have a contact page on my website. I do speaking engagements, workshops, relationship coach. I'd love to hear from you if I can be of service in any way.
Thank you so much, Mark. I think what you've produced is so valuable. I'm definitely going to buy my copy. I'm going to grab the ebook right now, and I would encourage all of our listeners to check this out. Dr. Mark Hicks, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.